Ladies and gentlemen, there is a peculiar wisdom in silence that many overlook. When blessings arrive, when doors open, when the inexplicable unfolds in your favor, why is there a divine nudge not to announce it from the rooftops? The next time life pours goodness into your cup, pause, breathe. Observe the temptation to speak, but do not act from it. Rest in the awareness that some of God's most profound gifts are meant to be felt, not flaunted. There is something profoundly transformative about silence. Not merely the absence of noise, but the deep inward stillness that allows awareness to rise. When God blesses you, there is often an instinctive desire to celebrate, to share, to express the joy. That desire is natural, but it is not always wise. What if instead that moment of receiving a blessing is actually an invitation to remain still, to guard the sacred energy of what is being birthed in your life? You see, blessings do not come as completed monuments. They often arrive like seeds, small, potent, full of potential, but fragile in their earliest stages. Just as a gardener does not shout over the soil where the seed is planted, the soul is not meant to stir the ground with unnecessary words. Stillness becomes the first act of stewardship. In the silence, the blessing begins to unfold, not in the eyes of others, but in the depths of your being. There is a spiritual law at play here, subtle yet powerful. When something sacred enters your life, it requires space, internal space, to settle, to root, and to begin reshaping your inner world. That reshaping cannot be rushed, and it cannot be explained to others in ways they will fully understand. Words, in such moments, are not enough, and often they interfere, because to speak is to reduce. To describe the sacred is to translate it into a form that can be grasped by minds that may not be ready or willing to hold its weight. Stillness, on the other hand, honors the depth of what is happening. It creates an internal spaciousness where gratitude can deepen into reverence, where joy can grow into peace, and where the blessing can be integrated into the whole of who you are. In silence, the blessing is not just acknowledged, it is absorbed. Also in stillness, your focus remains inward, where the transformation is truly taking place. When you speak too soon, your attention shifts outward. You begin to wonder how others perceive your experience, whether they understand it, whether they celebrate it with you, or resent you for it. These external concerns pull you away from the inner work that the blessing requires. They divide your energy, and what was meant to deepen you ends up dissipating into the air, like breath on a cold morning. Moreover, silence has the unique ability to preserve mystery, and mystery is important. Not everything God does in your life is meant to be immediately understood or explained. Some things are meant to be held in quiet wonder, to be lived into gradually, like stepping into a vast cathedral and sensing there is more than what your eyes can take in. That mystery is part of the blessing. It keeps your heart humble, your mind open, and your soul sensitive. So when God blesses you, consider not what you should say, but whether anything at all needs to be said. Consider that silence may be your greatest response, not because you are afraid or uncertain or secretive, but because you are reverent. Because you understand that what is unfolding is too holy to be made common through premature words. And in that silence, you will find something unexpected, a deeper communion with the divine. Not through speaking, but through being. Not through expression, but through presence. It is in that quiet space that the true meaning of the blessing begins to reveal itself, not as something you were given, but as something you are becoming. There is a distinct difference between the voice of the ego and the voice of the spirit. One seeks to be seen, to be applauded, to be validated. The other seeks alignment, peace, and quiet communion with the divine. When you are blessed, when life shifts in your favor, when doors open, or when something beautiful unfolds within, it is important to discern which voice is prompting your desire to speak about it. The ego is subtle, but its patterns are familiar. It wants recognition. Okay. It wants others to know that you are favored, that you have received something others may still be waiting for. It disguises itself as testimony, as celebration, or even as humility. But if you look closely, there is often a hidden thread of comparison, pride, or need for validation woven through it. If I tell others what I've received, the ego whispers they'll see my worth. But your worth was never in question to begin with, not in the eyes of God. The spirit, however, operates from a deeper place. It has nothing to prove. It abides in wholeness. It knows that being blessed is not a badge of superiority, but a quiet reminder of divine grace. The Spirit understands that every blessing comes with responsibility, and that responsibility is often carried in silence before it can ever be shared in words. The Spirit does not broadcast, it embodies. Yes. It does not compete, it completes. This distinction matters because when we speak from ego, even if the content sounds spiritual, the energy behind it creates disconnection rather than union. Others may hear your words, but they won't feel uplifted. They'll feel measured, compared, or even diminished. That is not the fruit of true spiritual expression. The Spirit speaks in ways that bring others into awareness of their own light, not your spotlight. Not your spotlight. When you keep your mouth shut about what God has done in your life, it's not because you're ashamed or hiding. It's because you're listening. You're allowing the blessing to settle into your being without the need for external reinforcement. You're letting it shape you from the inside out. You are being taught in silence how to hold something sacred without needing to display it. This is also a training in humility. The world teaches us to announce every achievement, to collect likes, followers, applause. But the kingdom of God operates differently. It calls you inward. It asks whether you can receive something beautiful and not make it about your identity. Can you be given something divine and not immediately attach it to your self-image? Can you hold the blessing without using it as a mirror for your own ego? There is power in restraint. There is strength in choosing to let the blessing speak through your life rather than through your words. Over time, people will notice. Not because you told them, but because the energy around you has changed. Your decisions shift. Your presence deepens. Your peace expands. Your peace expands. And these are signs no ego can manufacture. Ultimately, every true blessing is an invitation to greater union with God, not just a gift, but a path. And that path begins not in loud declarations, but in quiet surrender. The ego wants to take the blessing and run with it, shouting along the way. Shouting along the way. But the Spirit sits with it, waits, listens, and asks, what is this trying to make me become? When God blesses you, the greatest response may not be to speak of it, but to live into it. But your life, not your life. Not your lips. Be the evidence. Let your transformation, not your testimony, reveal the grace you've received. And in that still, quiet becoming, you move beyond the ego's need for validation and into the Spirit's longing for union. When a blessing enters your life, it brings light, expansion, and often a new chapter. But with every elevation comes a need for protection, not because the blessing is weak, but because it is sacred, and sacred things must be guarded until they are fully established. Speaking too soon or sharing too widely can open that sacred energy to contamination, not always from visible enemies, but often from the subtle, unseen intentions of others. Every person carries energy, and not all energy is aligned with your growth. Some people, even those close to you, may not celebrate your blessings with a pure heart. It's not always malice. Sometimes it's unprocessed envy, insecurity, or a sense of lack they project unconsciously. The moment you begin to speak of what you've received, you expose your blessing to energies that may resist or resent it. And this resistance can interfere, not with God's will, but with your ability to stay rooted in peace and focus as the blessing unfolds. When God blesses you, He is doing something precise, intentional, and often delicate. Think of it like spiritual surgery, carefully placed adjustments meant to realign you with destiny. During such a procedure, too much noise, exposure, or external pressure can disturb the process. So, this is why privacy is not secrecy. It is protection. It is a conscious decision to create a safe space around what God is doing in your life. There's a spiritual maturity that says, I don't need others to know what's happening for it to be real. That maturity allows you to sit quietly in your blessing while it takes form, knowing that the right time to share will come, if it comes at all. You begin to understand that not every blessing is meant for public display. Some are meant solely for the transformation of your inner life. Some are invitations to deeper intimacy with God, not wider visibility in the world. Moreover, the act of keeping quiet creates a barrier against the subtle spiritual warfare that often follows elevation. The moment something shifts in your favor, the atmosphere around you shifts too. You don't just attract congratulations, you attract attention. Some of that attention comes with unseen expectations, comparisons, and judgments, and these things, while invisible, can weigh heavily on your spirit. They can distract you, pressure you, and even cause you to doubt what you've received. But when you choose silence, you create a buffer. You give yourself time and space to fully embody the blessing before inviting the world to see it. It's also worth remembering that many blessings come with instructions, and those instructions are heard best in silence. If you speak too quickly, you may miss what the Spirit is still trying to teach you. God may be saying, "This is only step one, don't speak yet." But when the urge to share overtakes the wisdom to wait, we risk stepping out of divine timing. Speaking prematurely can bring spiritual exposure that was never intended. Not because God is punishing, but because we've left the covering of discretion. In ancient times, sacred things were hidden behind veils within temples, away from the crowd. Only when the time was right were they revealed. You are the temple now, and the blessings you receive are sacred gifts meant to be guarded like treasures in the inner sanctuary, not to hide them in fear, but to honor them in wisdom. So the next time God blesses you, ask yourself, is this a moment to speak or a moment to protect? Trado. Is this for public celebration or for private reverence? In silence, you preserve the integrity of what is being done in your life. You let it root deeply, grow quietly, and emerge fully formed, untouched by projections, and covered in peace. The process of manifestation is subtle, slow, and profound. It is a deep, often hidden unfolding of energies that shape the material world from the realm of spirit. When a blessing is bestowed upon you, it is not the final outcome that should capture your attention, but the ongoing process of becoming that is taking place within you. Every blessing, whether large or small, begins its journey not as a fully formed reality, but as a seed planted in the fertile soil of your soul. And like any seed, it requires time, space, and patience to grow. When you speak too soon about a blessing, you risk disturbing that delicate process. The words you share may not only dilute the sacredness of what is happening, but also interrupt the natural course of growth. A seed does not immediately burst into a full-grown tree. It requires nurturing, protection, and time in the unseen. Similarly, a blessing requires an internal space of quiet and stillness to fully take root in your life. Just as a tree needs the deep, quiet darkness of the soil to develop its roots, your blessings need the quiet depth of your heart to grow into their fullest potential. Every manifestation involves a period of gestation, a time when the blessing is still forming and cannot yet be fully perceived with the physical senses. This is why it's so crucial to hold your blessings in silence during this time. By sharing too early, you can invite doubts, external influences, and even negative projections that can destabilize the process. When you speak of what you're waiting for, whether it's a career opportunity, a relationship, or a financial breakthrough, before it has had a chance to fully manifest, you invite the opinions and energies of others into a space that is still delicate. Those voices, whether of encouragement or skepticism, can interrupt the flow of the blessing and disrupt the clarity needed to see it through to fruition. Manifestation is also not always linear. It doesn't unfold according to the predictable timeline or formula that the world often expects. Sometimes, a blessing arrives in fits and starts. There are breakthroughs followed by periods of waiting, periods of doubt, and periods of deep surrender. Speaking too soon about a blessing can cause you to misunderstand its timing. It can also create premature expectations in both yourself and others. If you announce a blessing too early and it takes longer than expected to fully materialize, there is a risk of frustration, confusion, and even disappointment. But if you stay quiet, you create the necessary space for the blessing to unfold at its own pace, unhurried, unpressured, and unperturbed by outside demands. Furthermore, manifestation involves both the unseen and the seen. While you may not immediately see the fruits of your blessing, the invisible energies are at work behind the scenes. These energies are delicate, requiring a protected environment to continue their silent work. If you broadcast too loudly or too soon, you may disrupt the delicate process of alignment and integration. When you keep quiet, you allow the blessing to mature at its own rhythm, without the interference of external noise or validation. In the silence, your faith is tested. You are being asked not just to wait passively, but to trust deeply that what has been started will reach its full expression in its right time. This is the work of spiritual maturity, not forcing the blessing to unfold prematurely, but allowing it to be, to become, and to shape you as it does. Through this quiet waiting, you are cultivating patience, trust, and an inner knowing that the universe operates in perfect timing, even when you cannot yet see the end result. In time, when the blessing has taken full shape and is ready to be shared, it will naturally emerge into the world. But until then, the greatest act of honoring what is being manifested is to hold it in silence, nurturing it through presence, trust, and patience. This is the art of allowing. By doing so, you create the fertile conditions in which your blessing can grow and become all that it is meant to be. You allow the manifestation to mature fully in the unseen before it enters the world of the seen. And in that process, you become not just a receiver of blessings, but an active participant in their unfolding. In conclusion, the blessings that come into our lives are not merely gifts to be flaunted or immediately shared with the world. They are sacred energies, delicate in their unfolding, and require our deepest reverence and protection. When God blesses you, it is not just about the outward manifestation, but about the internal transformation that occurs as the blessing takes root within you. Silence, in this sense, becomes a powerful tool, not to hide or conceal, but to honor and nurture what is growing in your soul. By choosing to keep quiet when a blessing arrives, you protect its purity from external influences and give it the space it needs to to mature. In the stillness, you create an environment where your inner wisdom can fully absorb the magnitude of what has been given and where the blessing can naturally unfold in divine timing. This practice teaches us humility, patience, and trust in the process, allowing us to experience the true depth of the blessing without rushing or manipulating its course. The ego may urge you to speak, to share, to seek validation from others, but the spirit knows that the most profound blessings are those that are held in the quiet sanctity of the heart. It is in that sacred space that blessings become fully integrated, where they shape you from the inside out. And when the time is right, they will emerge into the world, not as a boast, but as a living testament to the grace and transformation that have quietly occurred. So, let us learn to honor the gifts we receive in silence. Let us cultivate the stillness that allows blessings to grow and trust in the divine timing of their manifestation. In doing so, we not only protect the blessings themselves, but also allow them to mature into something far greater than we could ever have imagined. Thank you